pretty much every time we come here, it's a mixed bag of feelings of super excited, super happy to have achieved this major step in our dreams, but also, just can't even describe the feeling of overwhelm. There's just so much to see, so much to explore, so much to discover. Behind me you can see a big pile of forestry slash that was left behind, and this is quite common throughout the property. In my opinion, that's quite a big mess that was left behind, but you know, firewood forever, and that's a lot of carbon that, if we're able to process it, can be returned to the soil, but we'll have to wait and see. Another big issue is, of course, you can see the steepness of the property, and because there's no cover whatsoever on the soil, a lot of this just comes straight down. This is not that bad, but there's quite a few spots of the property where slips are starting to occur, just because the amount of rainfall that just smashes down on the ground and creates a bit of instability there. Quite difficult to capture on camera how steep some of the sections of this property are. Right behind me, this is an area which would definitely be hands and feet climbing up, definitely not walking up. So with regards to replanting into New Zealand natives, questionable, interesting. We'll have to wait and see. One of the additional challenges that we also have noticed is the surrounding properties, or at least a lot of them, are still in monoculture pine. So that gives us a lot of seed pressure for young pinelings, young seedlings of pine that are going to pop up through the property. In addition to that, of course, we've got gorse and broom, which are both showing up, but I'm not too worried about those because they can be actually quite good nursery crops for natives. The pines, however, as far as I know, are a bit more of an issue, so we'll have to look into dealing with those at some stage. Most of the pines that are regenerating on the property, you can barely even distinguish them from the gorse, which is all around here as well. But there's a tiny little pine seedling basically anywhere around on the property. They are small. Not so much for this one. This one is up to almost chest height, shoulder height for me, which is quite tall. Quick question I'm going to ask out loud, because this is what I'm wondering in my head, and maybe you might be wondering this too, or if not, enjoy my question anyways. So this is a regenerating pine. This, I would say, is probably a year old or maybe 2 years old, something like that. Came from the neighboring property, of course, from the seed load that is in the soil around it. I am wondering, there's quite a bit of tall gorse around it, as you can see. All these yellow flowered things is the gorse. So maybe the extra nitrogen that the gorse provides into the soil, and also the wind protection and all that kind of stuff, is giving this specific pine a boost, allowing it to outgrow all the other ones because they all had the same starting point after harvest last year. Nonetheless, a pine is a pine. And although I love pines as a species and as a tree, they're beautiful beings, they're just not the trees that we want on this property going forward. So I'm just going to quickly chop it down above the baseline so the roots will decompose, feed the soil, and then the pine itself, maybe make some pine needle tea, but the rest of it is just going to also feed the soil. Bear with me, it's quite a climb to the top. One other additional challenge, which I'd like to mention, is the fact that we purchased the land through a company. Now that in itself, it's not that interesting. That was actually the only way to be able to purchase the property. But one of the hooks, one of the challenges with that is, some stage down the line, we're going to have to be making some money, because a company that doesn't make any money can't exist for a long time. So this whole project is also about, can we create a business model, a truly sustainable business model around replanting, carbon credits, biodiversity credits, and who knows what else. So that's another thing that we're going to be looking into and documenting as we go. Let's not forget our resident goats. They're also here and probably here to stay, because even if we'd get rid of that family that is chilling out on the property at the moment, I reckon that there's going to be quite a bit of pressure coming from the forests around, the pine forest and the native forest that both surround this area. I've also seen deer droppings all over the property. We found our first possum as well. So, you know, we're not the only ones here that want to make a living. So what's the issue with the goats, having goats on the property, and the deer and some of the other species that we've found? They're all introduced. Doesn't necessarily have to be a problem, because some species can come and just adapt to these islands. But the major issue is they don't have natural predators, except of course from our endemic hunters, which do a great job at hunting them, but definitely they can't keep up with the numbers that we have at the moment. And so the goat and the deer and whatnot, they all browse in our native bush, New Zealand's native forest, and because they don't have any predators, their numbers keep rising, and they just have a feast in the native bush, which generally prevents undergrowth and regeneration in the native forest. So you just have the tall species and some ground cover species, but nothing in between, because that all gets smashed and eaten by these animals. And I guess that presents an issue, almost a philosophical issue, because they were introduced by humans, and humans are not native to these islands either, but they can do a lot of damage, and so can humans. But we have to think about how we can move forward and what would that look like. So we are thinking about, on this property, can we accommodate the goats? Can they be here, or are they just going to smash through all the young plants that we plant and the undergrowth? Is there a way to live together, or do we have to think about other solutions for the long term? These are all kinds of questions that pop up and that we do not have the answers to at the moment. Right, we made it to the top. Probably 30 to 45 minute hike, a bit longer because I was rambling on about all this kind of stuff that I want to share about the property. So thank you for listening. It gives you a bit of an idea of some of the issues that we're thinking about at the moment. Here's some of the views that you can enjoy with us. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you for another ramble sometime soon. Cheers.